I'm doing this from sunny Tasmania, so very excited to be bringing this to you today. So my webinar today is all about how to come up with a newsworthy angle. So let's get started. So firstly, I just want to talk about what newsworthy actually means. So what the media are looking for are things that are new, which is obviously where the word newsworthy comes from. But they're also looking for things that are relevant right now for a variety of reasons, which I'll go through with you. But it's basically a non-commercial story that you're giving them. So they really aren't looking for somebody promoting their business. They are looking for something that's of interest to their readers or their viewers, and that's what makes it newsworthy. So it's kind of a bit counterintuitive in that you normally would write a whole lot of information that is useful for people, and then at the end you can say, for more information, go to www. and direct them to your website. But the actual story needs to be a story that is of use or of interest to their particular readers. Now, let me see if I can get the technology working properly. Here we go. Okay, so what kind of stories are the media looking for? Well, there's kind of two types of stories. There is one where you write an article as if you're the journalist, and so that when you send it to the journalist, if they like it and it's relevant to their readers, they will literally cut and paste it and put it in. They will always give you credit for having done the story, and they will nearly always put a link through to your website at the bottom. And sometimes they'll do a bio as well, a short little paragraph about you and why you're an expert in your area. The other kind of PR that you can do, or the other kind of media release you can do, is to pitch an idea. Now, that's the one that I think a lot of small business owners think is the common one, which is you going to a journalist and saying, I've got a terrific story idea. Why don't you do a story on X? And you might also say, I've got this expert you can speak to, and here's some research that backs it up. So the idea for that one is that the journalist is going to write the story and you're just giving them the idea. But that is work for the journalist, and those ones are harder to get up or to get published than ones where you actually write the whole article for them. But those are really the two types of stories that you can pitch to the media. And the other thing, I can't remember what I was going to say there. Anyway, so there you go. Now, moving on. So I'm going to now take you through a whole lot of different ways that you can try and make a story newsworthy so that the media will pick it up. But the first thing to remember is that if you're going to go to newspapers or radio, then you'll find that they have to have a local or a national focus. So what they're looking for is, if it's Victorian radio, they want to know that it is something that is relevant to Victorian listeners. It could be that you are based in Victoria. It could be that your service is available in Victoria. But if you're going to go out to media that is state specific, then they are always going to want to have a local focus. It could be one of your customers as well that is in that area. Now, the other kind of story is maybe if you're going to TV or you're going to magazines, then they're going to want there to be some kind of national focus, in that anybody of any of their readers or any of their viewers can access whatever it is that you're talking about. So you need to, for instance, I'll tell you a story. I did an article for, or I did some PR for a business in New South Wales, and they were trying to get people to buy this sort of cladding for their houses. Now, we went out with a national story saying that it was available everywhere. And what happened was a whole lot of people in Perth picked up the story and started contacting the company, only to find out that they couldn't deliver in Perth. So then we had the journalist who was really unhappy because they had promoted something that wasn't relevant to their readers. You had readers that were really unhappy because they wanted to buy this service and they couldn't. And it just kind of leaves a bit of a bad taste in everyone's mouth. So do keep that in mind when you're targeting media, that you're going to be able to service the readers or the viewers wherever they might be. All right, now here are some great ideas for coming up with a newsworthy angle. The first thing that you need to know is, particularly in the news media, so that's radio and newspapers, they love research or stats. They absolutely love it because, and it needs to be fresh, but because that way they can be seen to be coming up with something that's really new. So it's also factual, and it also kind of gives them a comfort that that what they're talking about is backed up by some research. Now, it must be very recent, so anything older than 6 months is useless. Anything within 6 months, it just needs to be something that's fairly fresh. So if you have seen this research quoted in the media before, then it probably won't get picked up. It needs to be something new. Now, one of the ways that you can get around that is to run your own survey, which is a great way to get a story, because if you're writing the questions that you want people to answer, then you can kind of skew them in a way that they will give you the answer that you're looking for. Now, there are a few different ways you can do this. For newspapers, they will be looking for at least 300 responses, but that could be a poll that you run through a group on Facebook or on Instagram. It could be a little Survey Monkey thing that you do through some of your own partners. It just needs to have at least 300 responses in order to be picked up by the media to say, yes, that's a valid sample group, and so, okay, we'll go with it. Now, the kind of questions that you could ask, for instance, if it was me with Handle Your Own PR, I might ask a question that says, as a small business owner, do you find it expensive to promote yourself? Knowing that most people will say yes. I might also say, if I could tell you of a free way of marketing your business, would you be interested? Again, knowing that they're probably going to say yes. So that means that I can then go out to the media and say, in a recent survey, small business owners admitted that they find it very expensive to do marketing, and that if there was a free option such as PR, then they would jump on it. Now, you can see that I have skewed those questions to give me an answer that I'm looking for, but it is a legitimate survey. So just think about the sorts of questions you could ask, and maybe the sorts of communities you could go to get those kind of responses, to get that number of responses. But, you know, there's a Facebook group that I'm a part of called Like-Minded Bitches Drinking Wine, which is all about business women, and there's 190,000 of them in there. So chances are, if I put up a very simple poll, that I would get enough answers to be able to do that. All right, moving on. Now, this is one of my absolute favourite ways of advising people how to get PR, because these kind of articles get picked up 9 times out of 10. And that is you offering advice or tips around your particular area of expertise. So, for instance, if you were a bed shop, you might say something like, 3 things that you should do before you purchase your bed, you know, and then do a list of them. Or 5 things that you don't know about mattresses before you go looking to purchase. If it was Handle Your Own PR and I was doing it, I might go 5 things you didn't know about the media that might change your mind about doing PR. Perhaps you're an accountant or a bookkeeper, and then you could do an article on how to choose a bookkeeper and the 5 questions you should always ask them before you employ them. Or how to find the best kind of apples for this time of year. It really doesn't matter, but it's those kind of articles where you're answering a question that people want to know about, or that you are offering advice and tips about a particular area of expertise that you have that the general public don't have. The other thing that you can think about is what to watch out for. So that might be things like what to watch out for before you employ a digital marketing agency, or 3 things that you should watch out for before you employ someone, or before you choose to employ someone, or before you choose to use a service. So I think that those 4 or 5 bullet points should actually give you a really good basis if you start thinking about the sorts of questions that people ask you about your business, and a whole lot of things that you are always surprised that people don't know, that you would be able to offer in the media, in a magazine or a newspaper that is targeting those people. All right, so another great way to get publicity is to use case studies, and that is customers that you have worked with that have had a fantastic response, or that have actually managed to get something done that people don't know about, for instance. So most of us would have case studies They are those customers, but now what you're looking for is a customer that is newsworthy. So in this instance, this was an article that we did. We had a customer who has a business called Galmatic, and she actually teaches women how to do car mechanics. So very interesting business anyway. And she used PR to promote the business. So what we did was we seeded the story into the media saying how this woman had used PR to actually launch her business because she didn't have a lot of money. And the Sydney Morning Herald and the Age picked it up. And went with it. Now, there's another story that if you know me, you may have heard this story about the Melbourne Headache Clinic. But this is a guy who wrote a media release. He was a physio. He wrote a media release and it went out in the Herald Sun, got picked up by radio and all the TV stations for the radio, for the evening news, and really kind of changed his business completely. He got 7 months worth of business in 2 days. What he did was he took one of his patients who he had managed to help her cure her migraine, and he used that as the example, and it was so powerful it got picked up by all those media. So trying to use a customer can be great. It doesn't. What we're not looking for is someone who goes, this business is amazing, I couldn't imagine using another business. That's more of a testimonial. What we want is their journey, how it was. So in this instance, it was how this woman had done her own PR so that other people could learn from it. But you are very welcome to use case studies. You must ask the permission of the person that you're going to use, because it is highly likely that the media are going to want to speak to that person and hear their perspective as well. So just make sure that you ask their permission before you start quoting them in the media. All right, another great way to get publicity is to write articles, as I've said, write them yourself, and think of it in terms of thought leadership. So what do you want to be known for? Where do you want to be seen as an expert in your particular industry? And then think about the media that feed into that industry. So for instance, if you're trying to speak to small business owners, you might go to radio, you might go to the newspapers, I'm just trying to think, and then you'd go to the small business media, and then you would give them tips that are relevant to their business, but something that you in particular are able to offer. So for instance, I have written articles about why every small business should be doing PR. What they do is they give me a couple of pages, sometimes in a magazine, and then a little block at the bottom with my photo, my name, and a link to my website. So that's really what you want. That's the idea of writing a complete article and sending it to a magazine or a newspaper or whatever media it is. It doesn't really matter. You can also be known for your thought leadership on radio if you're prepared to offer tips and advice in something that will be relevant to their readers. So obviously you'd go to business radio if it was a business story. If it's a life story, then you might go to one of the women's magazines, or you might go to one of the morning TV shows. All right. So there is one more that I wanted to cover off, which is the struggle to success. Now, everybody loves to hear a story where someone has overcome adversity. That could be an illness. It could be, I've heard all sorts of stories, anything from, domestic violence and how that has propelled someone to start their business. It might be that you have had a startup that it took you a long time to get to become the overnight success that everybody sees at the last minute. But it's all about that struggle and that human interest kind of idea of how you've overcome adversity. Now, the only thing I would say is if you are going to do this kind of story, then the scrutiny is going to be on you, and you do need to be prepared that your face is going to be attached to that story in the media. Now, for a lot of people, that's not a problem at all, but you just need to be aware of it before you start putting your own personal story out there. Okay, so this is just a little tip for you. Another way that you can create a newsworthy angle is to find out what's happening in the media now, and then somehow or other try and link your story to whatever is trending. There is a great magazine, it's an online resource called Quartz at qz.com. It's free to sign up, and what they do is they send you a newsletter, I think it's every day, with 5 or 6 topics that are trending from articles around the world. Now, what you can do, and certainly people who've been doing PR with us have been doing this with great success, is find a story that has come out of Germany or Europe or America, and if it's relevant to your business, then just basically use the same kind of idea, but just write it for the Australian market using your own examples. That can work very well. And were given that tip by a journalist who said, if it's been picked up in the media overseas, then there's a very good chance that it'll get picked up here. So that can be a really good kind of app for somebody to sign up to. Just see what's trending in the media at the moment overseas. The other thing can also be what's trending in social media. So the Me Too movement was obviously a big one. There are lots of things that go viral in social media. And if you can somehow attach to that, that will really help as well. So the next question is, how do you get consistent coverage for a year? Because I'm sure all of you can think of one or two angles that you could write media releases, but really what you want with PR is to get consistent coverage over 12 months. And when I say that, that would be one or two articles getting published every month, which would normally mean that you need to send out about one media release a month. So you can use all those ideas I've given you to come up with angles. There is another thing that you can do, and that is to think about the time of year and the seasons and start planning your PR that way. So you might write down on a piece of paper 12 months. You might then add in Easter, you might add in Christmas, end of financial year. You might want to put in the spring racing carnival if it's fashion. Whatever it might be, but think about the times of year and then try and write a media release and send it out the month before that time of year hits so that the media have time to get it up. Think about what's trending in the media. And the other thing is your industry will have key periods. So there may be particular trade shows, there may be peak times, obviously in retail there are peak times, but think about your own industry's key periods. And if you're trying to target people within your industry, then to go out to those industry media with a story that's relevant for that particular period can really work. Now, I've done a little table here. This is absolutely not exhaustive, so this is just off the top of my head, different events that happen at different times of the year that you might be able to hook into. But for instance, it can be quite a loose connection. So for Valentine's time in February, obviously there is, everything to do with romance, and love hearts works really well. But you could have written a story for the business media about how much do you love your customers, or are you showing your staff some love this Valentine's, that kind of thing. And then just go in about, the rest of the article might be about the best way to look after your staff to keep them loving you. But it can be tenuous, but if you can link it to something, it makes it quite timely for the journalists so that they feel compelled to run that story around that time of year. So with Mother's Day coming up, in fact, I would say you've probably almost missed it unless you're going out to the bloggers for Mother's Day, as it's only a week away. But for Mother's Day, you could do, a dad's perspective of Mother's Day. You could do the obvious things, which are ways to treat your mum, but you might also, if you work in psychology, there might be the psychology between mothers and daughters, or mothers and their children. There's all sorts of things that you can do around Mother's Day that aren't specifically around gifts. So just go. There is also a website. Just Google it, but you can Google National Days of Significance, and there are those global days, and there are national days that feature everything from Family Day to Children's Day to, there's one that I heard about in America, which is National Walk Backwards Day. There are so many that there should be some that you could link your story to make it relevant as well. So that is a really good way to start planning out 12 months worth of PR and start thinking about the stories that you could run each month. But do bear in mind that it takes a little bit of time normally for the stories to get published. So you would probably want to go out 2 or 3 weeks before that key date, if possible. If not, like I said, with Mother's Day, you could try some of the blog websites now, and you could probably try some of the digital media on the basis that they may not have anything up there yet, but it's pretty close. So if you can, I would try, for Mother's Day, I would have been sending out probably April. All right, so I hope you found that useful. I'm very keen to get you started so that you'll get some PR this year. So I just wanted to run through our PR platform, because that is something that can get you there straight away. So with the PR platform, or we call it the PR platform, I think we're going to start maybe thinking about calling it the PR engine, because it is a bit of an engine. But the idea is that you can create and manage unlimited PR campaigns. The platform actually steps you through the process. So step 1 is choose your media contacts. Step 2 is to write your media release. Step 3 is to send it out, and step 4 is to do the follow-up. But it will take you through step by step, and on each page there's a little tab on the right that you can click on, and there's a whole lot of additional information in there about that step of the process. So tips and advice on every page. You get to build your own media contact list from our database of thousands of media contacts across all the mainstream media, which we constantly update. And also we encourage anyone who uses it to get gets a bounce back to send it to updates@handleyourownpr, and my friend Joe will actually update it on the database and let you know when that's been done. The same thing if you ever wanted additional contacts put in there, just let us know what media outlets and we'll contact them and check that they're happy for us to include them in the platform. We have a really easy to use media release template. It's like drop in your logo here, drop in your photo here, put your headline here, that sort of thing, and it will format it perfectly for you. Then you hook your email into our platform and you send out directly from the platform to the journalists, but it comes from your email address so that any responses from the journalists will go back to your inbox. And I actually have also created a step, because follow-up is so important, where you can do your follow-up and you can make notes, notes, not knots, on the journo responses, and you can even color code the follow-up pages so that you know which journalists have said yes, which journalists have said no. Any notes you make around a journalist, then any time later on that you pick that journalist, your notes will also show up. So I highly recommend, if you want to get started on PR, that you sign up to our platform. We have a pretty amazing deal at the moment. So it's only $397 a year anyway. But if you're not sure and you want to give it a go, we have a special trial offer that you can try it for 2 weeks for just $1. In that 2 weeks, you can send out a media release. You can see if you can get some publicity. If you're not happy with it, you just need to contact us and we will cancel. Otherwise, after the 2 weeks, you will be upgraded and we'll subscribe you for the 12 months. So there is absolutely no excuse now why you don't get started and try some PR ASAP. So thank you very much for coming. I'll be doing another one next week. My website is handleyourownpr.com.au, and we're also on Facebook at Handle Your Own PR. So thank you very much for coming, and next week I will see you with a new topic.
Oh, a couple of questions.
Oh, questions. Oh, sorry, forgot all about questions. Right, okay, let me just go through the questions. Sorry, I'm going to start from the bottom. Okay, so Cheryl, or Chris has said, how long should an article be? As a rule of thumb, I would say between 500 to 600 words, so about an A4 page, maybe 1.5 A4 pages. It shouldn't be super long. What you're trying to do is pique people's interest, whether it's the journalist or their readers, and then get them to go to your website for more information. So roughly 500 to 600 words. That's not set in stone, but that's a really good kind of benchmark. What else have we got? Yes, Karen has a really good suggestion here. Timeanddate.com is a fantastic resource for finding out what those national days of significance are. I always forget it because it just doesn't really gel with what I expect it to do. But timeanddate.com, which is an American site, has got gazillions of, National Day of Diabetes, National Day of Walking Backwards, all those sorts of things are in there. Thanks so much, Karen. Prue says, if you're sending a full written articles, are there any issues with sending the release to multiple recipients? Now, that's a really good question, Prue, because if I was a journalist, I would say, no, absolutely, only send it to one journalist. But the reality is that unless a journalist asks you for an exclusive, which I covered in the first of these webinar series, unless they ask you for an exclusive, you can send it out to as many people as you like. Now, we have quite a lot of people in our members group that are now talking about getting published 5 or 6 times from the one media release, including radio, print, and newspapers, or magazines and newspapers. So yes, you can. It's not what a journalist would want you to do, because they'll want to be seen to be coming out with, you know, the only article. But I highly recommend that you do it. The only thing I would say is if you're going to different target markets, then tweak it slightly, change the heading slightly, change the first couple of lines to make it relevant to that particular target market. And now I'm up to Chris, who's going, it's so good. I sent my first release out yesterday and she's already had a fantastic response. I'm thrilled. I happen to know that Chris's new startup is kits for long haul flights for keeping your skin looking great, so that you don't actually walk off looking a bit like a corpse, which is what happens when I catch long-term flights and you come out with your papery skin and feeling very surreal. So yeah, I'm absolutely delighted, Chris, that you've got such a good response. And the last question is, Chris has said, is it the same length with a case study? I would say yes. A case study, really, in most cases, they're going to want to talk to that person anyway. So you just need to get the story out about what you've done for them and how that's actually worked. And then probably I would put in a quote or two from that case study person, and then wait for the journalist to come back and ask you if they can speak to them, which is pretty much what they will do. So again, 500 to 600 words. And Paul has dropped in there I'm trying to think what that page actually is, because I did it this morning. Handle your own PR, get started. I think that is the
$1 14-day trial offer, Jules.
Thank you very much. The $1 offer. So there you go, guys. No excuses. Get started on your PR, and I hope to see you here next week.